Welcome to the Leadership Purpose with Robin podcast. I'm your host, Robin L. Owens, Ph.D. And this is where we dive in each week to give advice, tools, and tips for high-achieving women leaders. And we talk about leadership purpose and its importance for you. I am a college professor, and when I am not doing that, I am speaking, writing, coaching, mentoring, and teaching high-achieving women leaders how to find, and not only find, but how to stay in alignment with their leadership purpose so they can make a meaningful difference right there in their career, leadership, or business. Okay, let's dive in. Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Robin back today with another solo episode, as I do from time to time. And today's episode is to encourage you to think about callings. And I'll say more about what that is later. But as I've done in the past, today I will share a story from my own leadership purpose journey to encourage you to move forward and to think about your own. Do the work they started. Do the work they started. Those are the words of the university president at Mount St. Mary's University in Los Angeles, where I teach. As I mentioned in my intro, I am a professor, and this is where I teach. I am a tenured professor there and have been there at the time of this recording, 10 years. And those words, do the work they started, are the words of the university president, Anne McElhaney Johnson. She spoke to me and a group of others about a year and a half ago while we were standing around the grave site of one of the founders of the Sisters of St. Joseph's. That's the order of sisters that founded the university, Mount St. Mary's University. And so we're standing around the grave site of this founder in Lyon. We're standing in Lyon, France, around her grave site. And the founder, one of the founders of this order, her name was Mother St. John Fonbon. Mother St. John Fonbon. And so we're standing around the grave, and President McElhaney Johnson is concluding a 10-day pilgrimage on which we all followed the footsteps of those founders of the university, in essence. They started in France, in Le Puy, and we followed the footsteps over the 10 days of their work in their lives and concluded on this last day standing at the grave site of Mother St. John Fonbon. Prior to this moment, we had an opportunity to see the places and the stories that actually impacted the work of these founding leaders of a movement. Back then, when they started, it was the time of the French Revolution. And we're talking about 1794, for example, when Mother St. John Fonbon and a few others who were leading a cause to help others were scheduled to be executed. On one day, they were scheduled to be executed on July 27, 1794. And on July 28th, it just so happens that they were spared because of a change in power. That's just one example of how these women set out to do the work they were called to do at that time and the changes they made. That order eventually moved from France, went to the United States, and began to build colleges, schools, hospitals, homes to help women and programs to empower women across the United States. And so this is the legacy that we were honoring and celebrating when Dr. Ann said, do the work they started. Now, let me flash back to the beginnings of my work at Mount St. Mary's University. As I mentioned, it was over 10 years ago now. I was asked by a colleague, I had never heard about St. Mary's. I was asked by a colleague to come and do some summer workshops there for some students who were part of a program that they were biology students, and they were part of a program where they had to do research and build up their research skills and their communication. So she asked me to come and do some workshops on public speaking and presentations for the for the summer. I was living about 35 miles away from the college in another town in Claremont. And so I went over to Mount St. Mary's in Los Angeles for the first time. And like she said to me, when I walked upon the campus, it was like so beautiful and I felt an immediate connection. I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you went to a new place or experience and felt some sort of connection and kinship to it. I felt that immediately. So I went through the summer workshops and loved the students and enjoyed my time there. Spoke to lots of people on campus, faculty, staff, and students, and it was an all around good experience. Since that was just a summer position, I went back to my work in Claremont for the rest of the year. And as I was at that time finishing up my dissertation to complete my Ph.D., I was thinking about it's time to think about where I want to go from here. I had a position there, and now I was wanting to shift into full-time teaching. And I asked myself, well, if I could teach anywhere, where would I teach? And immediately it popped in my mind, Mount St. Mary's University. I loved that time when I was there in the summer. I loved the people, the students. It would be ideal if I could teach there. Now, I know that's not how job searches begin, but that's how I begin my decision-making process with what would be the ideal. And so I asked the question, and then I said, well, let me check and see. So I asked around campus, people I knew, if there were any positions opening. And my PhD is in religion, so I'm looking for positions in the religious studies department. They said, oh, no, we don't have any positions available. There's a guy in the department who says he's going to retire, but he's been saying that for years. So I said, all right. So I went back to my work in Claremont. I continued to do that work for another several months. And then one day, just one random Thursday, I decided to check. Let me see if there's any positions available at Mount St. Mary's University. Went on their website, and there it was. Tenure track position in the religious studies department. I said, that's my job. That's my job. I was so excited about it. So I applied to the job because it suited not just my personality, but also the mission of the university matched my own personal and professional mission. And so that's my job. That's my job. So I applied for the job, and the day came for me to interview. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to get my job. Because in my mind, the whole time I'm thinking this is my job. I didn't even apply anywhere else. Probably not the best job search strategy, but for me, I had another job. This was the one. If I wanted to get a job, I wanted to focus on the one I really wanted. And I had some well-meaning friends. Have you applied anywhere else? No, this is my job. Why? Because their mission matches my mission. Okay. So it's the day of the interview. I pull up. They have a sign with my name on it in the visitors parking. I'm feeling pretty good about this, going in to get my job. And then I noticed as I pulled up, there's someone, a colleague from mine from my PhD program, leaving the building. He was coming out of the interview for my job. And he's looking good. He has on a suit and tie, and he didn't look like he normally did on campus with his jeans and t-shirt, and he looked really good. And so he's coming out, I'm coming in. It's kind of awkward. So what can I do other than say hello? And I commented on how good he looks, and we had a laugh about it. And so then I went into the interview for the first time feeling nervous and like, somebody else is applying for my job. So I had a bit of fear and anxiety in the moment. I shook it off, went in, had the interview, and as they say, the rest is history. I got the job, and it's a match made in heaven because they focus on developing leaders, women's leadership, emerging leaders, and for the purposes of serving others. And so it was directly in alignment with my own values and mission. And I loved it. All right. So now fast forward, we're almost 10 years later. Been doing it for a while. I'm doing it well, enjoying it. But yet there's something in the back of my mind that's saying there's something more. I feel like I'm yearning for something, but I don't know what it is. My sense of fulfillment is still there, but it's not as strong as it was. And now is the time the university is going on a pilgrimage to Lyon and Le Puy, France, to walk in the footsteps of the founders of the university. So I thought, okay, this is my opportunity. Maybe I'll get connected to whatever it is that will help reinvigorate me in my sense of fulfillment in the work. It does that very thing. And at the end of the trip, as I mentioned, as we were standing around the grave of Mother Fonbonne, President Anne says, we've experienced the change they made, the leadership they took in their own way. Now it's time for us to think about our own lives in work, in leadership, and the ways in which we can make a difference individually. It is now time for us to do the work they started. And when she said that, instantly, I knew it was time for me to live more fully, lead more fully, and serve more fully. Now, that didn't mean to actually do more actual work, but do more of that which was in alignment with who I am, because I realized I was growing and changing. And you can't not grow and change in life, right? And so I said to you, it's almost been 10 years at this point that I had been working there. Of course, I'm going to grow and change. And just like you, of course, you're going to grow and change over time. And so I took some time after the trip, a few weeks of reflection, and I realized that it's time for me to start teaching others how to find fulfillment in their leadership, in their business, in their career. I was being called to it inside of me and literally through the words of Dr. Ann. So I want to encourage you to think about calling. Think about calling. So you might say, well, what do you mean by calling? What I mean by that is I agree with the author Greg Lavoie in his book entitled Callings, Finding and Following an Authentic Life. And by the way, Greg Lavoie has essays and articles that have appeared in the New York Times Magazine, Washington Post, Psychology Today, and others. And in this particular book, Callings, Finding and Following an Authentic Life, he says your calling may be something to do or to be something. Okay, so I would say it this way. Life may be calling you to do something, change careers, go back to school, have a child, change positions. It may be calling you to do something. Or life may be calling you to be something. Be more creative in certain ways, express yourself differently, be more loving. It may be calling you to be something. So for me, calling is when life is calling you to change and grow as you have changed and grown. And you might say, well, how do I know when this calling is trying to get my attention? This is how you can recognize it. You begin to feel like there's something missing. There's nothing tragically wrong. Actually, you're doing well by everybody else's standards. Life seems well, nothing really to complain about, but there's something missing, or you have this strong yearning that there's more for you, or there's more that you want to do, or more that you want to be. This yearning or this sense of something missing is a way that you can recognize this calling. You might be asking, well, why? So what? Why is this important for me to do? Because it helps you grow. Life is always calling you. Life is always calling us, whether we recognize it or not, because we're constantly changing and growing. As we live life, as we work, as we lead, we're growing and changing. So life is asking us to keep up with our own growth, our own change. It's important because if we don't do it, we begin to feel stuck, stagnant, and unfulfilled. And if it goes too long and unattended, it may show up in the way Gay Hendricks talks about in his book, The Big Leap. He talks about when you don't attend to this, what I'm calling the sense of yearning and growth. He says in his experience with counseling hundreds and hundreds of people, he saw over and over again that people tend to get what he calls diseases of unfulfillment. And those are the things the doctor can't quite pinpoint what they are, and not quite, life or death, but they are issues that you have that you just can't quite pinpoint them. And he talks about those in his book, The Big Leap. That's Gay Hendricks. So that's why it's important to recognize and understand and follow the changes that are happening with you and when life is calling you to do more. or to be more. And you might say, well, how do I respond when I feel this sense? The first thing to do is, as I've mentioned in the past, I've just given you something to get started with today, to take the first step. And the first thing you could do is to acknowledge that it's happening. Oh, I'm feeling this yearning. I'm feeling like something is missing. I'm feeling like I need to live more in alignment with who I am today. So acknowledge it and then spend some time in quiet on a regular basis over a period of time. Pick a random period of time, a week, let's just say. And in the morning or at night at bedtime, spend 20 minutes in silence. You'd be surprised how your mind clears in the silence. Spend some time and just ask yourself, if I could do anything else and I have everything I needed and everybody I love supports me, what would I do? And just listen to what comes. Write it down in a journal and keep doing that for a few days. After a few days, go back, review your journal, and I think you'd be surprised to see the themes that emerge. You will get the hints. You will get some ideas about your next right step. So then whatever comes to you, you take that next step in your next calling. So callings, that's what I'm encouraging you to do. Pay attention, follow the callings. It's your path to fulfillment. And I say next calling to reinforce this idea that your callings are continual. They evolve, they change and grow as you do in life and in leadership and in your business and in your career. So I encourage you to pay attention and to follow those callings. And of course, if you want some help with that, I will offer you a free gift of 30 minutes to think through your next steps and how to think through and apply your own life and leadership callings. And you could just go on to my website, robinlowens.com/gift, robinlowens.com/gift. And I'll be happy to gift you with 30 minutes to just think through the next step that you will walk away with knowing how to move forward toward your next calling in your leadership purpose. All right, everybody. This is Dr. Robin. Follow your callings. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Leadership Purpose with Robin podcast. If you enjoyed it, head on over and rate and subscribe so you never miss an episode. New episodes drop every week, and I can't wait to hang out with you again soon. Meanwhile, this is Robin signing off. See you next time.